Welcome to the TeenPreneur Show. I'm your host, Dia Coley, and I'm a teenpreneur, bringing you global entrepreneurs who are teenagers. They have started out really young and are an inspiration to all. They prove to be the perfect example of how teenagers can rise high. So tune into this show every week to know more about these young game changers and be inspired by these teens. Watch the young dream big. Now on with the show. Welcome back to the TeenPreneur Show. I'm your host, Dia Coley, and I'm also a teen entrepreneur. I'm the founder of Redone It by Dia, which recycles, empowers women, and donates profits towards cancer research and cancer treatment. But now let's get on with the show. Today we have Ben Wong. He's 15 years old and from California. Let's bring him on. Hi, Ben. How are you? Ben, can you hear us?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm great. So let's start off with
I can hear you kind of.
young.
It's cutting out quite a bit though.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm saying let's start off with talking about YoungTrep. It's your podcast. Can you tell us what it's about?
Yeah, so
Okay, it
earlier
seems
this
like you
year
hear.
in May
Okay.
2021, of course, I partnered with these two
Mhm.
amazing twin brothers. They're the founders. Oh, can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear. I can hear you, Ben.
All right.
Okay,
So
it
yeah,
seems
Young
like.
Trep was started back
Okay.
in May of this year, my third podcast, and I partnered. So back in May of this year, I partnered with these two amazing brothers, the Torn brothers, to
Hmm.
create the Young Chat podcast. The Torn brothers are the founders of the Kidpreneurs Academy, and we really wanted to put together a podcast made for kids by kids. It was all about helping young people build up the entrepreneur lifestyle. So we looked at some of their
Hmm.
connections, some of my connections, and people we up to, and we got them all on the show essentially, and putting together from entrepreneurs to thought leaders to experts, all on different subjects that are all related to youth entrepreneurship. And that's where we're at now.
Hmm. Well, that's great. I love that you've collabed even with other people. How did you get to know them?
I hosted a summit back in February, the Kids CEO Summit,
Hmm.
and it's actually one of the largest events, kid entrepreneur events out there. And I had the event, and when I was looking for sponsors, they are pretty high up there, and so I was working with them on a giveaway basically, and through talking to them about this
Okay.
giveaway, we came across this mutual project that I don't know, right place, right time, and that they were looking for a new podcast host. So I jumped at the opportunity, and yeah.
That's so cool. Can you tell me maybe the different topics you like to talk about, other things?
Right now, my biggest three things that I try to center the show around come in
Hmm.
business, that's entrepreneurship. So more practical things like when I have entrepreneurs on, of course. Then, of course, wellness. A couple of weeks ago, or at this point, I had a sleep coach on, and that was super cool. So wellness is another big thing. And then three, also health. So I know this coming season, I'm trying to put a lot of work into finding people like health coaches, food
Hmm.
scientists, because I think that's a big aspect that I'm working on in my life. And so, of course, I wanted to share
Hmm.
it with all my listeners.
Yeah. And when is like your new season coming out, or has a new season already come out?
Yep. So season 2 of YoungTrep is coming out the very first Tuesday of September, the in a couple weeks or so. And so we're kind of
Yeah.
revamping the entire show. We are making it,
Hmm.
we're upgrading it, of course, like always. We're always looking to improve. So new guests, new subjects, and more of amazing content.
Hmm. Can you give us a little sneak peek about what some of the episodes might be about?
Yeah, so I know early on, I'm not going to say exactly who, but we're having a CEO of a pretty big
Hmm.
company. I think they're like a over $200 million company, a very famous company. I don't want to reveal too
Hmm.
much. I will say
Hmm.
they're in the transportation industry in a way. And so
Okay.
he is an amazing CEO who has a great life story. And so he's on the show in one of our first episodes, and he's going to be talking about how he got started and also his tips for kids, especially about innovation.
That sounds super interesting. Really excited for that. And that's coming up real soon in like a couple of weeks, like you said. That's super nice. I want to know what reason you kind of got into entrepreneurship.
In a couple years ago, I'm going to say when I was around 9, 10, maybe younger, maybe a little bit older, I really
Hmm.
had this unexplainable urge to make money. And it initially started just by wanting things like video game memberships. There's a game called Animal Jam. I don't know if
Hmm.
it's still around, but I really wanted this membership for Animal Jam. And there are a couple other, things that I wanted.
Yeah.
And so instead of going to my parents to ask for the money, I decided that I wanted to make it all by myself. And so I just looked around the
Hmm.
house looking for opportunities to make a quick buck. So I got a couple friends together. We would pick avocados from some trees outside, and we would go to the corner and sell avocados. We made like $30 an hour, which is amazing for 8 or 9 year old. And from there,
Hmm.
I kept buying the small things until I grew up a little older and wanted to start having that money that I made make me more money. And the best way
Yeah.
was through stocks. So I got into investment. I bought my first stock at age 11 using my avocado money. And so from there, I decided to create a podcast called Kid CEO because a lot of my friends were starting to
Hmm.
ask me how they can kind of do the same thing with investment. So the Kid
Hmm.
CEO podcast, I did that for a while. I think I did over 40 episodes. I think something around that.
Wow.
But after
Hmm.
that, I cultivated the Kid CEO Summit, and then at the Kid CEO Summit, that's when YoungTrep came together, and the rest is history.
Wow, that's super cool. I also want to get a little more into Kids CEO podcast. So what specifically did you discuss in this podcast? Like what topics?
On the podcast, the topic of the podcast really changed a lot, and it really just kind of depended on
Hmm.
what I was, what kind of mood I was in. So initially, I was talking
Yeah.
solely about finance, talking about inflation at the time, which is a big thing, interest rates. That was a big thing at the time. So I of course covered that. I jumped into different, areas that I can cover. So then I went into uh, a couple months where I just covered future innovations, things like even Bitcoin
Hmm.
was I think it might have still been considered pretty new back then, and Bitcoin, GMOs, and so I just covered those kind
Hmm.
of futuristic inventions and simplifying them down for kids. After that, though,
Yeah.
around this time last year, September, I started interviewing other kid entrepreneurs, and I started with Kid Everest, who were some friends I met along the way
Hmm.
for 4, 5 months.
Hmm. So I love the whole concept of it. I want to know why did you try to, or why did you kind of transition from Kid CEO to Young Trep? What made you make that like switch?
I think it was, so this was in May this year, or no, a little earlier, April, May of
Mhm.
this year. And Kids See YoungTrep are the idea for YoungTrep and Kids CEO were super, super similar. I think it was really just the opportunity that was there, the potential of YoungTrep, where I could partner with a company that's arguably one of the top companies in this space and be able to
Mhm.
partner with them. So instead of trying to go on it on my own, I was able to partner with other people and together
Yeah.
collaborate. And collaboration always has better results than working on your own. And so
Mhm.
that was the bigger aspect of it. The idea is were more available through collaboration.
Mhm. Yeah, and I love the whole idea of both of them. I want to know what is your mission with both of these platforms?
I would say that the mission of both of these platforms and my personal mission is really
Mhm.
just looking at there's so many little fires, like I like to say. There's so many little fires around the world. Go on any news
Mhm.
site, you can see all these different issues, and that's on a macro scale. Look at the micro scale, just everyday issues that people go through every day. And I see all those problems as opportunities. Some opportunities can be
Mhm.
solved by government, solved by huge organizations, but a lot of them can be solved by small scale entrepreneurs. And I see it my best opportunity to solve, or I can't solve, 1,000 problems on my own. Or I guess I could, but it would
Yeah.
take a while. But I can influence thousands of people at a time to go and solve these problems. So I could take one problem, work
Yeah.
on it for a year. Even if I lived to 100, I'd solve maybe 70, 80 problems. Or I could
Mhm.
use this podcast to influence people and they can go solve these problems. And so that's my mission why I still do it, is looking at so many opportunities in the world to make the world a better
Yeah.
place. And my biggest contribution being able to inspire other kid entrepreneurs to become entrepreneurs and solve those problems.
Hmm. That's such a great like mission and goal to have for like both of these platforms, especially because your platforms are very big, and you get to reach a lot of people. I want to know why particular did you decide to make a podcast out of all this information?
I'll tell you what, I actually don't know exactly why I decided to start a podcast. This was when I first thought of the idea of doing anything whatsoever. This was even
Hmm.
earlier. This was 2019, October 2019 was when I
Hmm.
released my first episode. I didn't release episodes for a little while after that, but and it took a little while too. Like I think I actually created the idea all the way back in May or summer of 2019. So
Hmm.
back then, I really had no huge knowledge of entrepreneurism. I did have experience. I grew up in my family business.
Yeah.
Little while after that, I grew up in my parents' family business, and so I always grew up in business. So I knew I liked doing
Hmm.
business, and it was more or less at that point. I hadn't read books like Crushing It by Gary Vee. I didn't know who Gary Vee was. I didn't know that how many options there were, um, what kind of media I could do. And at that point, my
Yeah.
mom was starting to listen to a lot of podcasts. And so she was thinking,
Hmm.
Ben, why don't you do a podcast? I honestly, looking back at it, I could have done a YouTube channel. I could have done solely social media and, did Instagram lives. I could have done a lot of different
Hmm.
things. I think just
Yeah.
podcasting at that point was the quickest way. There's also a lot of new apps and softwares that made it super easy to do it. So at that point, just doing a podcast was the fastest way that I could get this message out there and get rolling. And so, of course, being the fastest
Hmm.
at that point, of course, I'd go for it.
Yeah, I totally understand that. And I know you mentioned you had experience in like the entrepreneurship area before. I want to know, have you even learned things along the way from interviewing so many people?
Oh, I think you cut out. What was that last part?
Oh yeah, sorry. I was saying, have you learned things along the way from all the interviews and podcasts that you've been doing from like your guests?
A ton of things. You could go to my
Hmm.
Instagram profile and just scroll down and see, I think like maybe 30, 40 clips of just these guests sharing amazing things. And
Hmm.
probably my biggest thing is that I've learned personally from all these people is just going for it. That's the
Hmm.
biggest like common factor I think in all these people's stories is that while they all have their own industries, they all have their own passions, their own missions, the one thing they all
Yeah.
had in common was that they just went for it, right? And so that's been
Hmm.
the biggest thing I've learned is to not think so much about potential opportunities and just go for it.
Yeah, totally. And where did you like learn other things more in deep about business and entrepreneurship and all the other topics that you discuss?
I remember writing a blog post about this a while ago, or I
Hmm.
think it was an Instagram post, and I talked about how in this digital age, literally anyone can learn anything for free. I think that in my personal experience at least, showed that to be 110% true. So I had no
Yeah.
business school. Of course, I had no business school. I didn't really take any business courses. It was mainly just through experience. So I kind of opened
Hmm.
a couple small companies. They weren't, official companies or anything, but throughout those, I was able to learn how
Hmm.
businesses work and having to encounter obstacles along the way in each of those businesses. I was able to just go
Hmm.
on Google and look for a guide about how to do that. And so it was just kind of not learning so much initially, but just going for
Hmm.
it and doing whatever business came my way. And then
Yeah.
whenever I encountered a problem, an obstacle, I would just go on a website and look for how to do that. Maybe I'd watch a
Hmm.
YouTube video about how to do that. And then
Yeah.
so over time, instead of going to a business school or taking an online course and spending 3 months on an online course learning about it, I just went for it, did a business, and then along the
Hmm.
way learned what I needed to learn.
Yeah, that's so great. And I totally agree with you that the internet is such a great source for learning things. And even through YouTube and all these different platforms, it's just a great way to learn so much more. I know you've been talking about businesses a lot, and I kind of want to get into your business called Rich Kids Global. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so Rich Kids Global is a organization I founded with two teens in the UK, Luke Mullins, and a teen in Australia named Alex
Hmm.
Bleakley. And they were two participants at my summit. And after the summit, they actually reached out to me about talking about their idea, which was to programs that would help kids become
Hmm.
rich in mindset, rich in purpose, rich in passion. And I was, obviously intrigued by this idea. And so I said, yeah, let's do it. And so over the past couple months, I became a partner in the business. And so we're just
Hmm.
working to, again, contribute to my personal mission, contribute to their mission as well, which is pretty
Yeah.
similar, and just help kids become entrepreneurs. And that's the central theme you'll see in this interview. The podcasts have the same mission, but they're
Hmm.
a podcast. They're an audio version. They're free, easy to access. This is the same mission, but slightly different. It's not a podcast, of course. It's courses
Yeah.
and programs. And so, yeah, that's why I decided to get involved.
Hmm. So, is it just you three who are the mentors, or do you have anyone else that's kind of a part of this?
Entrepreneurs Book Club. And the big thing with that is trying to get kids into nonfiction reading. And I know nonfiction reading isn't the most entertaining thing to do, but it's super
Hmm.
important and super, super useful. I can't tell you how much I've learned just from reading a couple books. I have a giant bookshelf over here of just nonfiction books, and the knowledge I've accumulated and that you can all accumulate too is amazing. And we want to
Yeah.
take that knowledge, but make it
Hmm.
into a little more fun of an activity. So instead of just getting
Yeah.
a book, going outside and reading it, we're turning it into more of a 21st century experience. So we have an
Hmm.
app that basically helps keep you reading, but in a community. There's different things like quests, which every single week you'll get new types of prompts and questions to engage you with the book. There'll be calls every single week, like Zoom calls, where you can talk about the book, discuss different aspects of it, things you learned, engage
Hmm.
with, potentially with the future, engage with the authors themselves. And so that's the idea behind Young Entrepreneurs Book Club, is making the experience of reading nonfiction into a 21st century fun, intuitive time.
Yeah, that's so great. Um, for the Rich Kid Global programs, what would you say are some great programs that you offer and teach?
Could you say it one more time?
Oh yeah, sure. I was saying about the programs that you offer for Rich Kids Global. What would you say are some examples of ones that you provide?
Yeah, so like I said, the company is still super new. So we're just kind of in the startup phases of it and thinking of
Okay.
these type of programs. Right now, we're
Hmm.
focusing on the Young Entrepreneurs Book Club, but
Hmm.
definitely stay tuned at richkids.global and you'll start seeing more courses and opportunities being popped up.
Yeah, it's so great, and we're all excited for that. I also want to know, is this going to be a virtual type of platform thing?
Sorry, could you say that one more time?
Yeah, sure. Is this something that you will be doing virtually, like through the internet, or something a little different?
I can't hear you completely, but I kind of hear what you're saying. So
Okay.
yeah, all the Rich Kids Global. Um, they're all in different areas, so they're all virtual programs. So everything is being
Okay.
done via the internet. You can do it at home, at school. I don't know, at the local park.
That's so great. And what type of age ranges can like someone be to join?
Right now, we're focusing on the 11 years old to 16, 17-year old, that kind of range.
Hmm.
So people like my age, people like Luke's age, of course. But in the future,
Hmm.
we are looking towards expanding into the younger age group, and that's a
Hmm.
separate type of thing to cater to, it's a completely different audience to cater towards. But yeah, so
Hmm.
right now we're focusing on 11 years old to 18 years old, or 17 years old. But in the future, you will see younger age ranges start popping up as well.
Hmm. That's so great. I love how you're like even having that goal ahead of time to even start encouraging younger kids to become entrepreneurs. And on that kind of topic, I want to ask, what do you love about being an entrepreneur?
I'm gonna have to say just every part of it. That's what I would say. But to
Hmm.
go into more detail, I love being able to. It's hard to find one single thing that I love about being an entrepreneur, but it's really the thrill, um,
Hmm.
the uncertainty, but also the uncertainty that you can control the uncertainty a little bit. right? So it's
Hmm.
not knowing exactly what's going to happen, but knowing that you can somewhat have a control over what's happening. And I
Yeah.
don't like living a dormant life. I love change. I love things evolving. I love new environments. But
Hmm.
in entrepreneurism, there's also an aspect of it that you can control. So life's going to change, but being an entrepreneur, you can help change your life, change other people's life. So that's probably the best part. Just the thrill of uncertainty, but uncertainty that you
Hmm.
can somewhat control.
Yeah. And for the future, I know you are mentioning a bunch of goals that you have for the future for all of these projects, but are these something you plan on continuing maybe into college and even further after that?
Could you say that one more time?
Yeah, sure. Are you planning on continuing the podcast and your business towards into college and maybe even after that?
Potentially. To be completely honest, I have no
Mhm.
idea what's gonna happen in 2 3 years. I'll be possibly going to college, and
Mhm.
the podcast. I don't know. Maybe I might. Maybe I doubt it'll be the exact same as it is now, but maybe I will have
Yeah.
some sort of podcast about something in that time.
Yeah.
Business, I know for sure, same thing. I don't know that it's going to be the same business, but I know
Mhm.
that.
Well, that's great. I don't know if you can still hear me because I think you cut out a little, but would you like to share your social media handles for our audience if they want to connect with you a little afterwards?
The best place to find everything I'm doing is at my website, benjaminwong.co. There I have
Mhm.
all my social media links. I also have my personal story if you would like to find more about that, and also my blog where you can view all these different blog posts. I talk about things like side hustles, how to make an extra buck like I still do now with garage sales or sports cards. Also things like book reviews or recipes. And so make sure you head there, benjaminwong.co. Otherwise, you can follow me on Instagram at official Benjamin Wong.
Well, thank you, Ben, for coming on our show. You had some great advice to give us. And thank you, everyone, for watching the Teenpreneur Show. Make sure you tune in next week at 5 o'clock. See you then.
Thank you for watching the Teenpreneur Show with Dia Coley. Follow us for more information at teenpreneur.show on Instagram. To be a part of the show, fill out the form in the Instagram bio. See you next week.